And we are live, baby.
Yeah, we're back.
The film for today is All That Jazz.
Yeah.
And you asked me.
Number one, I said, did you pick this film and have you seen it before?
I said no to
You
both.
said no to both. And I said, I'm interested to know why you selected this film.
That one's for Rory.
It's because he saw the Criterion of Margaret Qualley.
This guy, bro. Seriously.
So the second he told me he was picking that film, I was like, you got to be more subtle than that.
You saw her Criterion.
He saw the lip bite and it was game over from there, basically.
That's a caution. Not a yellow card, but that's a caution.
That's a caution.
And so, going in, saying that now, were you happy with your pick? Having watched
I was very happy with my pick.
So, we're going to be discussing All That Jazz, 1979, directed by Bob Fosse and written by himself and Robert Allen Arthur. It explores the demanding nature of being an artist and the cost that often comes with ambition. The ensemble of dance routines, the use of blocking to create dynamic and visually beautiful striking sequences was something to behold. However, for all the thrills and craftsmanship, this film ultimately left me slightly wanting. While there is so much I resonated with, I also left this film with a slight tinge of disappointment.
I second that. Taskmaster.
I thought it was a very you film, Yasser.
Oh, wait.
My girlfriend watches this show. So there's a funny actual story about this. I'd actually begun watching this film with my girlfriend. Yeah. So I put on All That Jazz and I just thought it was going to be just a musical. And my girlfriend and I, we love musicals. 15 minutes in, he's already cheating on his girl with like two other girls. And so my girlfriend was like, okay, pause. All right, next. And thank God I'd stopped it then.
Yes,
It gets fucked.
Oh, yeah.
And because
it really gets bad.
It hit me as well because I really wasn't expecting that. I was kind of expecting a Baz Luhrmann-esque type glitzy,
Same.
glitzy. You know.
Well, the trailer
even Chicago
lies to
type.
you.
Yeah.
Because you look at the trailer
you're
and
like-
everyone's jumping in top of the camera and you're like, oh, this is going to be,
like,
it's cool.
you know.
And then open heart surgery just in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like, bro. Oh my gosh.
All right. It'd be cool to discuss just a little bit about Bob Fosse before we
Yeah.
get in, just so we get a little bit of context.
Yeah, 100%.
Bob Fosse was one of many boys. He was the smallest guy and the shortest. So he was the youngest in age and the shortest. He had a very hard time making himself seen. And so he was like, all right, I'm going to double down on this dancing.
Yeah.
He started out dancing, soon became extremely good at it to the point that MGM signed him off. He wanted to be the new Fred Astaire. What happened is his physiology didn't grow in the same way that Fred Astaire's did. He was extremely tall. His shoulders were kind of hunched and he started losing hair. The production was telling him, listen, get a toupee. But at the time, particularly in the 50s, you can tell when you had a toupee on. Yeah. What he started doing was he started putting a hat on. And that already is one of the reasons why hats are so prominent in the various choreographies by Bob Fosse. His physical imperfectness made his perfect style. The fact that he had hunched shoulders and that it was more effort for him to just bring him back, he started just including this into his choreographies. Obviously, you got the snapping, the jazz hands. When he kind of understood that he wasn't going to be the new Fred Astaire, but due to his incredible dancing talents, he later became a choreographer. He was given the opportunity to shoot a film version of Sweet Charity, which he'd done theater for, with his third wife, who was like the biggest influence in his life, Gwen Verdon. Yeah. And Gwen Verdon, in fact, also had a huge impact on most of his big titles like Cabaret and All That Jazz. And the character of the ex-wife is basically Gwen Verdon in the movie. And instantly, what was noticeable is this guy, Bob Fosse, really is a fucking G. Because he didn't study film. He didn't go to film school. He'd already revolutionized dancing. But in addition to that, he had a understanding of cinematic language that was just a natural. If you look at the choreographies of Sweet Charity, they're extremely well blocked. The film doesn't hold up because of the story. But when you look at the musical pieces, they're legendary. In fact, the Aloof is one of my all-time favorite musical set pieces of all time. And it is so popular, in fact, that it went on to inspire the likes of Beyonce. Beyonce literally took that choreography, like shot by shot, in one of her pieces. And Ariana Grande recently in Yes and retook that entire aesthetic and applied it into her clip. Bob Fosse was an avant-garde insofar as he was obsessed by the authors and writers of the French New Wave. And one of the things that the French New Wave brought is this extremely modern and aggressive in-your-face editing, where suddenly he would completely manipulate time in a way that was just so out there, disheveling, unorthodox. Instead of finding that to be uncommercial, Bob Fosse was like, if I can bring that kind of editing and accelerate the momentum or cut to the beat, then I could have something that's a lot more powerful when you're watching a musical piece without even noticing it. The genius of Bob Fosse not only revolutionized theater, but he also revolutionized musicals, what we call Fosse time. In the good old days, in the times of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and the great Stanley Donen with the Gene Kelly musicals, if you notice them, they would always favor wide shots. You would see the full body of the actors dancing. And the reason for that was to show the unbelievable maestria of these incredible artisans. They would use a lot less cutting and a lot more blocking. So these films are expertly blocked, and the cuts would only come to accentuate the beginning of a new beat. Let's say, for example, a musical piece has 5 beats. Maybe you'll get like 5 cuts. Each of these 5 beats will be laid out in a invisible one take, one long continuous shot. But you don't notice that it's a long continuous shot because the likes of Vicente Minnelli, who is the greatest musical director of all time, would fill his frame with so much well-crafted and well-placed characters, objects, and the interplay between the two that you don't notice that it's one take. If you look at The Red Wagon, you have Fred Astaire. He goes into this bar that's filled with these gangsters, and he sees Sid Charisse, single-handedly the greatest actress dancer in the history of Hollywood. You notice the movement of the gangsters in the back whilst they're doing their piece. Notice the dynamism comes more from the interplay of the actors within the frame. Cutting isn't it. You'll find exactly the same thing with Singing in the Rain or the Ginger Rogers in Top Hat, that famous final piece where they're tap dancing and twirling around and around in this unbelievable palace. That whole sequence lasts like 7 minutes. But you don't see it going because you're dealing with 2 of the greatest artists absolutely killing it on the screen. Musicals, the set pieces sometimes were a little bit formalist. In the sense that they sometimes broke away from reality. And it was more about the emotion that it creates and less about realism. So if you look at these set pieces, I'm talking Wizard of Oz, Red Wagon and all of that, the backgrounds are hardly colorful, and there is like a stain on the walls, and everything is exaggerated. Sid Charisse, when she takes off her coat, and you can see that it's a fucking really bright, powerful red. Same thing in Singing in the Rain. You go up, you have that foot in the foreground, he turns around, camera goes back, we introduce Sid Charisse in the most lush green outfit ever. That used to be the way to do it. And Fosse goes, no, I'm not going to do that. That's too pristine. That's too clean. And if you look at my theater play, I'm rugged. My actresses don't stand straight. They're curbed. They're loosely dressed, as in cabaret. I do not portray bourgeois on the screen like in Top Hat. What I portray is more of the dingy underground. He was obsessed with really showing the physicality. I make them fucking do crunches and shit. I make them work. And I want you to feel that they're working out. And I want you to see that they're sometimes out of breath. And I want you to feel that all of their muscles are fully tight in order to hold this one position and that they're sweating. This is my aesthetic. This is who I is. The first thing that he does is he adopts a documentary-like style to his musical pieces. He'll have multiple cameras shooting at the same time, in the weirdest of positions. In the phenomenal movie that is Cabaret, which is the film that made Liza Minnelli, if you look at the camera, he brings the camera low. He brings it so low, in fact, that it's literally where the audience sit. And his camera angles will always be just slightly off, ever so slightly off. And he'll put the camera underneath chairs. He'll put the camera underneath legs. He'll put that camera where in the foreground, instead of having like a fully identified body, just the randomest piece of anatomy on the foreground with Liza Minnelli dancing in the background. And what it did was it brought like a cinema verite to the shoot. In his musical pieces, a big part of the enjoyment will come from the performance of the characters, because Liza Minnelli is a great dancer and a great singer. but she's nowhere near Sid Charisse. She's nowhere near Gene Kelly. But why the hell am I getting such a kick out of Mein Herr? The reason for that is because of the editing patterns that Fosse brings forth into American cinema, into the American musical that he brought from the Europeans. So every single moment is being heightened by the editing. And for the first time, where the American musicals had invisible editing and almost invisible directing, he made his editing absolutely present. And I would dare to say it honestly holds a candle to the actual choreography itself. In All That Jazz, they are repeating one of the pieces in front of the producers. They're shuffling from left to right, but there's like 4 different cuts, always with snapping of the fingers.
It's interesting what you said about the editing style as well, because the editing style was a lot like Whiplash.
Exactly.
Whiplash also does that, where the editing goes along with the music and the rhythm of the drums.
I love that you say this. There was an interview that I'd seen of Damien Chazelle, and when I was watching All That Jazz, I didn't think of a musical video. I thought of Whiplash instantly, and I was like, my God, Damien Chazelle watched a lot of Fosse.
Yeah, exactly.
And he brought Bob Fosse to Whiplash. Because in that final piece, the dude is sweating like a motherfucker. Yeah, exactly. He's bleeding. He's focusing on the muscles, the straining. He's almost focusing on every single bit of the drum bass and the effort and toil. But you know what? That's what makes it so insanely satisfying. Like, I remember the ending of Whiplash. When that thing ended, no one was talking at the cinema. No one was really standing up because we had to digest that 10-minute piece of bravura.
Yeah.
And Fosse is the one who implemented it first.
Yeah.
You're going to like this. No Fosse, no Michael Jackson. Look at Bob Fosse's choreography in Little Prince and compare it to MJ, and you'll understand. What does MJ do? He does this thing where he slumps his... MJ always has his hat. Another thing that defines the Bob Fosse style is hip thrusts. MJ thrusts his hips a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
What does Bob Fosse also do? He snaps his fingers all the time. What does Michael Jackson do? And Fosse's characters are also very much black with like a white shirt. MJ's black with a white shirt.
It goes to show you. It just goes to show you the influences.
Yeah.
The influence that he's had, and that was something I did notice a lot when, especially in those big dance ensemble scenes when they're like in front of the producer doing rehearsals, and then it's on a foot one moment, and then it's on an arm one moment, and then it's on even a neck. The one bit was on like the half a smile and neck bit like there, and it's just like going, really keeping you, and the pace kept
to the beat.
To the beat.
And it's like very rhythmic. It's very rhythmic. Yeah,
you're in it. It's like visceral. You're kind of in it and with it, like Whiplash. When you're watching Whiplash, you're in it.
Exactly.
You feel, and that's what kind of those moments in this film, like, you know, they make you feel like you're there. It's very, like you said, physical, interactive, even kind of a word, because you're just like in it.
That interactiveness was really why he was shooting it documentary style.
Yeah. Because it feels more personal with a documentary style.
Exactly. He didn't want you to be like, oh, this is clearly, pure entertainment and a real, like, escapist. No. Yeah. He wanted his choreographies to be set within the boundary of things that you would see. I've seldom seen a film that is so aggressively edited.
Yeah.
Like, aggressively.
Yeah.
Sharp cuts, flash cuts, match cuts.
Yeah.
Every single cut on the face of the planet Earth, this dude's applying them to create maximum effect, to really highlight that frenetic pace. The editor, Albert Haim, was the actual editor that is in the film as well. Yeah. And it's so funny. There's a funny story about that. This was his second or third movie that he was editing for Bob Fosse. He gives one of the reasons as to the importance of editing in his film, and it's because in Lenny, the film about Lenny Bruce, a stand-up comedian who was notorious for being completely anti-system and speaking truth to power and really not caring if he gets a laugh, which is how fucking powerful this guy was. Didn't care if he was liked or not.
Doesn't matter.
And it was a time where he was facing a lot of censorship. It was in the 60s. Censorship was at an all-time high. They were just coming out of McCarthyism. And the thing is, Dustin Hoffman played Lenny, but Dustin, being an actor, couldn't shake off the want of being pleased by the audience. And it could translate into the camera. Particularly, Bob Fosse's camera is filming everything like a documentary. It's so personal and intimate that it could just call bullshit.
Yeah.
Fosse had a massive issue because he was like, oh crap, I don't believe it. I don't buy this performance. And so the way that they managed to fix that was in the editing room. Haim figured out that actually if you intercut the joke with the actual reality of the scene, so something happens to Lenny's wife in the movie, and while at the hospital taking care of her, there's like a nurse, a really cute nurse, smiles, and from there we hear the voiceover of the show saying, men just aren't built like women. By doing that and just giving that one bit, but using the joke almost as a commentary to what you just saw, gave that edge to Hoffman, because we just saw him being a fucking cunt 2 seconds ago.
Exactly. Right.
So now it really worked. And that completely blew Fosse out the park, because he was blown away by the power of editing in that particular instance, because now suddenly it worked. And that's when he was like, that's definitely something that I'm going to bring onto All That Jazz. In All That Jazz, in the meantime, Haim had a kid, and they were struggling with the editing of this film, and Haim really thought this thing would never see the light of day. Fosse was so frustrated that he said, you were a better editor before you had a child. And Haim really took that shit to heart. He went home and he was like, okay, I love the film because I see the rushes every single day, and I can tell that this is going to be a masterpiece, wonderfully shot, marvelously acted. But Fosse is being a dick. I really have to change the dynamics. Yeah. So the following day, they were looking at the rushes of Haim's performance. And so Fosse looks at all the takes, and he was completely deterred, disgusted by the performance. And he looks at Haim and he's like, man, what the hell? Why can't you act? And Haim's like, dude, I'm not an actor. And he goes, but you're a human being. I'm Bob Fosse. Normally, if I have a human being, I could get any kind of performance out of them. And then Haim turns around to him and he goes, you know, Bob, that's the nicest thing you've said to me since the beginning of this film. And with that, we get to All That Jazz, a unconventional, structured piece.
The craftsmanship of this film was, there was not a problem for me. That was nothing that left me wanting. It was more
screenwriting.
Yeah, especially to do with Gideon, the central character, because, and you see this trope done quite a lot. It's like a tortured artist to an extent. You kind of resonate with this idea of there is a sacrifice to ambition, and also not just sacrifice, but because of how the brain works, you become all consumed with this thing. There is nothing more. This is the end goal. This is perfection is needed, and you will drill yourself until you get this, and you can resonate with that. But ultimately, I'll be quite frank, I did not care for the central character. From an artistic standpoint, yes, there was a great understanding there, and I thought he got that across brilliantly. Even when you get moments where he's drilling them again because it wasn't good enough, he doesn't feel it's perfect enough, and there's moments where he's always asking for like reassurance there. But on a human level, I didn't actually like him at all.
But do you have to like a character in order for you to enjoy a film? Because you call Taxi Driver one of your favorite films, but you're not a terrorist. So
and that's a very important question you've asked there. No, you don't.
Right.
And the thing is, I did enjoy the film, like I said, but it left me wanted because I did want to feel a kind of deeper connection for the character. And you mentioned Taxi Driver there with Travis Bickle. He's a strange, odd man, but there is a sort of, you kind of even pity him. Yeah. You pity him to an extent. With Gideon, you kind of are the architect of your downfall. And while that can be the case for many other characters that we do resonate with, being the architect of the downfall, because that happens a lot, there was at no point, apart from his art, where I felt super connected to the character.
It's interesting. Do you think maybe that you felt that way as well because Gideon is always in a position of power? You say he's the architect of his downfall, but in addition to that, he's the architect of everyone in his life. And you never have the impression that he is the underdog. In fact, he's just surrounded by victims. He's surrounded by people who actually are being used by this guy. Yeah. And so from the start, you're not giving me reason enough to actually care, whereas Travis Bickle, he's like a reject. Yeah. He starts off from the gutters. Yeah. He's trying to be a better person. Yeah. He's dressing up nicely. He's taking women to porn films. So he's doing the right thing. But it's just... But Gideon starts at the top.
And that's a wonderful point, and I would agree with that. And even that you touched on Travis there, that moment where he takes Patsy, is it Patsy or Betsy from Taxi Driver? We don't
remember her name, but we all have her face etched in our minds.
when he takes her to the pornographic film, there's a moment after where he's kind of pleading with her and he's saying, what do you mean? I didn't know. I see couples go to this all the time. I thought it was a good idea, basically, is what he's saying. And in that moment, you're like, fuck, man, this guy really fucking, he really doesn't get it. He really doesn't understand. And in that moment, I remember you just kind of feel, It's
because if you think about it, he was probably a young man in Vietnam. And he's still a young man, so he's come out of war to this city and he hasn't grown up properly. He's grown up in a foreign country and he's been in this war and he's now come back and he's expecting things to be better and things aren't better.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like dejected and you empathize with him more because you feel that situation. That
Isn't
sense
it
of
crazy
loss.
that if you look at Travis Bickle's sins and you look at Gideon's sins, Travis Bickle's sins are way worse than the other one.
Yeah.
And yet, because of the damaged background, because of the fact that he is an underdog, and because of the fact that his enemy seems to be a corrupt system, we all empathize with that and we all agree with that.
Yeah.
We're so obsessed with the underdog archetype that goes against a corrupt system that we are willing to forget his raging racism. Whereas another dude who consensually has sex with a shit ton of women, and yes, fine, breaks a lot of hearts because he starts at the top and because he's never the underdog in the entire story, we have less empathy with.
It is crazy to an extent, but it's like
Mandem.
It's like seeing one side of someone, you know, because Gideon, you see him already in a position of power.
Yeah.
There's no rags to riches type thing. There's no, this was me before, this is me now. There's, I'm here, this is my position.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we get the things that we do know of him are very in your face and strong. And even those cuts of the morning routine with the pills and shower.
Legendary.
Beautiful stuff. And then so it's all like in your face type stuff. And then you're getting slivers of stuff when he's interacting with Jessica Lange's character, the Angel of Death. So you do get sometimes, because you kind of think, okay, there's a little nugget there, there's something there, but
for me, it's mostly with his daughter.
Mostly with
my
his daughter.
favorite scenes in that film. I get moved just thinking about it. He is catching up with his daughter, who clearly wants special daddy time. She manages to tap into him and get some valuable time from him just by practicing his passion, which is dancing. And you can definitely tell that she's utilizing dance as a way of just having some form of relationship with her dad. It's unbelievable, the power of children. You want your character to be likable, just have him interact with a child.
And then you could ignore 90% of the other rubbish they do.
But that's the thing. The moment you see that scene, you're like, but he's not that bad though.
Yeah, because there's a human side to him.
He's just completely sucked into his work, and okay, fine. He must be very insecure because he has to shag all these chicks, but look at him with his child. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Well, could you say the same about Travis then, because he tries to save a child?
Yes, I mean that's also massive. Like Travis, 100%. His complicated interaction, shall we say, with Jodie Foster's character, for sure. I actually think that in history, the only person who didn't manage to win us over with a more human side was Hitler's love for his dog. That one didn't work. That one. So shortcoming number 1 was the fact that you couldn't care. Is there any other shortcomings? I mean, the story already has an interesting, free kind of falling structure. The first half kind of holds itself together.
It does. The first half.
And the sort of conflict is, okay, is he going to be able to make this theater play, which is basically Chicago, and then he gets a heart attack, and then it gets all meta from then on.
You blew it. You forgot your line.
I accepted and I agreed with the first conversations with death, but then in the second half, it just goes crazy. It's as if he was writing it as he was going.
Yeah.
And when that happens, okay, now it's a contemplative piece. Now it's less so about intellectualizing. It's a lot more about feeling. What do I feel about this barrage of hallucinatory images in a parallel universe and him half dying in a hospital? And I accepted the first three pieces while he's like under drugs, and you have the other Joe Gideon like speaking to him saying, "Can we cut it?" And basically like his girlfriend, his ex-wife, and his daughter are dancing, and they're doing those musical pieces. I really appreciated those set pieces because they made sense to me on a narrative level. He has all of these projections of the three most important women in his life. It's a lot harder for me to get attached, and so when I saw that in that film and I wasn't expecting it, it kind of threw me off. I thought I was going to watch Cabaret, and in the end, it was not. And Fosse explained that in the end, I didn't want us to have a meaning. I wanted it to be as absurd as the realities of life.
Yeah.
Again, it makes sense on a creative level, but it's just that, to me...
Personally, yeah.
And I didn't really understand what I'm supposed to get out of Gideon's character in the end. Also, sometimes the tone, I didn't really understand is this a satire or... is this really reality? There were three moments in particular for me where I'm like, this doesn't feel real. The first one is the trauma that the daughter must be feeling by having a father like that was 100% downplayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes a false promise at the beginning of the first scene, and then she just like, she kind of looks down. And then after that, she kind of forgets it. And obviously she loves her dad, and obviously but it's like children have more standards.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more complex. She just swept it under the rug exactly like his 10,000 exes, and she never questioned it.
Yeah.
Secondly, there was this completely caricatural sequence where they bring the doctor and he's coughing and the doctor's coughing and he has a cigarette, and the entire time both of them are just coughing and they're both smoking cigarettes. And it's like, oh, okay, is this what doctors are in showbiz? That they're as fucked up as the actual artist per se? And then there is a sequence where there is John Lithgow's character when they're trying to think about replacing Joe Gideon, and there's the waitress who comes up. She sees John Lithgow's character, this great director, and she goes, "Oh, I love your shit. Yeah, I like you. You're my second favorite after Joe Gideon." No one would look at Mike Nichols and say, "You're my second favorite after literally your enemy." And so this is why to me it became like, oh, is this a satire where actually characters can say what they actually think? Almost like Curb Your Enthusiasm. It felt Curb Your Enthusiasm-esque at some points. And the scene with like this ridiculously fabulous like singer-songwriter when he's doing all that, and he's completely red and he's almost caricatural and he's jumping on the piano and he's writing the song and displaying it in front of the producer, with Joe obviously being completely uninterested. He's sweating profusely and he's all red and he's got smoke coming out of his ears. Maybe it's just because he was breaking codes, but I just felt like every single women character in his life were victims, which, okay, fair. Apparently they were, but I find it a little bit bland.
Yeah.
And I found his ex-wife to be so interesting.
Yeah.
The scene with the ex-wife is exactly the same as the scene with the daughter. She's on the floor and she's dancing and she's just trying to woo him and just trying to get him into having a serious conversation whilst dancing. It's like the deepest convo in the entire film where she's saying, you're feeling guilt. Why guilt? Well, for never being once faithful to me during our entire marriage. What do you mean? And this is like a really serious and deep convo that should not be said on the dance floor, but the thing is, it's the only way that she can get this kind of stuff out of him. The third scene that I love, when Anne, his current girlfriend, whom he's cheating on with a ton of different girls, she's trying to have a bond with him through a dance piece with his daughter, and they're using it to reach him. That's cinematic to me, because obviously those scenes are great because you're using movement, action, and you're visually showing a dramatic set piece of one character wanting to seduce another through the means of movement. But I didn't get more. You know what I mean? I wanted so much more.
Do you feel like that second half could have delved more into the relationship between him and the various women, his daughter and his girlfriend and his wife, to try and reach more of a conclusion for his character?
Yeah, and I just didn't like that the conclusion was so unnuanced. The guy just basically stands up, caresses his ex-wife and says, "I'm dead now, but at least I won't hurt you anymore." It's like, what the fuck? What? That's how you end it? What?
It's interesting because that's exactly how I felt in the second half, and I couldn't quite pin down what it was, and I think it's because I was so shaken by these different sequences, and it doesn't really give you time to think, almost. Do you think it was because he didn't have clarity in what he wanted, or do you think he was just being indulgent?
I think there's a bit of all of that.
Right.
I think Haim clearly said that he wasn't fully clear, and he wasn't fully clear because what he was trying to crystallize in film was a man's relationship with death, which is already ethereal in and of itself.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how can you rationalize that in a classical structure? So he already knew that there was going to be like a philosophical edge to the film. And then Bob Fosse at that point he's the king of the world. I mean, he'd done like the Treble, which no one had done. So in the same year, he'd won an Oscar, a Tony, and an Emmy.
Yeah.
And he basically had final cut and all creative power. And he was overwhelmed, I think. And it shows.
Yeah.
That entire bye-bye life sequence, I'll give it a pass just for that hard cut with the last shot. Where he's basically being zipped in a dead man's bag and the end. Directed by Bob Fosse. Some of the ideas in this film are so poignant that you see them everywhere. Like that morning routine edit that acts almost like a leitmotif. The first thing that I thought was really interesting is if you notice, the angles change every time.
Yeah.
And they get weirder and weirder. So as to essentially accentuate the degradation of Roy Schneider. You'll have the first, it's showtime, folks.
It's showtime, yeah.
It's the camera, eye level, on the mirror. He's there, you see him fully. The last time, it's a low angle shot on his back. It's almost like a crow, and he's just going, it's showtime, folks. Yeah. And the light is really quite ominous at that point. I thought that was a really nice touch and flourish. Yeah. The editing of that sequence is so influential. That line, it's showtime, folks. That's what Saul Goodman says every time before going,
it's showtime, folks.
And that kind of rapid fire editing, you see it in Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
And you see it in just so many others. But that same kind of routine with the drugs, I 100% know that.
The dilating eyes,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What else is there to be said, guys? What do you guys want to say?
In terms of his directing as well, I really felt in this film that you could see the presence of someone who had directed theatre and big ensembles.
Yeah.
And we've spoken on the editing as well. And I think that just accentuated it to an extent. So we often talk about craft. We'll sort of speak about script and we speak about the editing. We speak about the directing. But I think what Fosse done here is he used the tools he had. He showed off his craft as a theatre director, number one. And to be able to translate that into the cinematic by using an intimate documentary style and then with the hard and sharp cuts. The influence of theatre on cinema holds great importance. And I was even watching something that Francis Ford Coppola was saying, if you find it difficult to work with actors or you find it difficult in blocking or you find it difficult, go and direct theatre without the pressure of the camera. And within a year or 2 years or whatever, your skills would be phenomenal. I remember watching that on Instagram. And so then I thought, okay, let me have a look and see at some of the directors who were theatre directors also, because there's quite a few of them. So I had Sam Mendes, Orson Welles, Bob, my man Bob, Sidley Lumet, Danny Boyle, and Baz Luhrmann.
Martin McDonagh.
There we go as well. Theatre as well. There is something to it, you know, what Francis was saying. Theatre is a very visceral and kind of very hands-on as such. And being able to translate that into cinema is beautiful because theatre is also very cinematic. To now involve the camera in the sort of stuff you're doing in theatre, now you're showcasing all sorts of talent. I think Bob Fosse done that really well, particularly in this film. And I'm going to go away and watch more of his films. You mentioned Lenny, you mentioned Cabaret as well. I haven't seen those. And so for me, even and this is a big takeaway that I just want to end this point on is, even though the film left me wanting more, I also took a great deal from this film in terms of craft and in terms of that first half, especially how beautiful and touching it was in terms of visually striking. Creatively, it's kind of inspired me and made me want to do a deep dive more into Bob and his films and explore that connection between theatre and cinema a lot more.
I think what you said was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I actually want to add a little thing to that.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that'll perfectly close the episode.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Orson Welles. Orson Welles is the director who arguably made the greatest debut feature of all time.
Incredible.
Citizen Kane. And why it's considered by many as maybe the most important American movie is because it just broke so many rules and added a breath of modernity to just a way of making movies at the time. One of the prime reasons for that is because, as you so eloquently put it, he came from theater. He didn't know essentially the cinematic rules per se, right? He just came with that theater knowledge, a hell of a lot of energy, and managed to just rewrite the codes.
Yeah.
That kind of theater background mixed with the naivete spark led to a complete rejigging of the way we make and consume film. Bob Fosse came also from theater, had that unreal energy, never went to film school, and completely rejigged the way musical pieces were being filmed and edited. Both of them modernized and revolutionized filmmaking techniques that we still use to this day.
Yeah.
I know drama.
Yeah.
So as far as angles and where to put a camera and editing, I'm going to bring my musical tempo from musicals, or I'm going to bring my, in the case of Orson Welles, my theatrics where I'm going to use foreground, middle ground, background, and I'm going to accentuate it with wide angle lenses, and I'm going to put my camera on the floor because I can, and I'm going to show the fucking roof because I can, and suddenly you really had an element of, like, it was almost like stage.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Fosse, all that jazz, watch it. I would say watch Cabaret first. I do have a slight preference for Cabaret, but that does not take away from the power of all that jazz. The poetry may not have translated perfectly for us in the second half, but I'm sure for many it will.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That is Margaret Qualley's favorite film, so go watch it.